Now, leading our bulletin this half-hour, disruption and commotion have broken out at Birchwood as Mineral Resources Minister arrives for the Mining Charter Summit. 2 days has been set aside for the last round of Mining Charter Review Summit. Some people attending the event today have seemingly tried to chase the minister away as he sat down at the podium before addressing the summit. Mantashe has been crisscrossing the country, consulting stakeholders on the draft mining charter. It aims to transform the previously white-dominated mining industry. It also seeks to ensure that communities benefit from the firms mining in their areas. Let's now cross live to that summit underway in Ekurhuleni's Birchwood Conference Centre.
This tendency must be confronted because it is disruptive and destructive. And we're going to be vigilant over the 2 days because we have been warned of the intention. We've been warned of the intention to disrupt a summit by a few who have no interest in the industry, who have no interest in the sector, at the expense of the people who are in the sector. Those people in the sector will be the mine owners, it will be the communities, it will be your workers. And those people want to disrupt this summit so that stakeholders cannot engage, are going to find us very vigilant. We're not going to allow it. We're not going to allow it. We're just not going to allow it. Not on our behalf, on behalf of all of you who took your time to come here to engage constructively, disagree civilly. When we disagree, we must disagree civilly. There's nothing that requires hurling of insults when we disagree. We must disagree civilly. This is a culmination of a very intensive journey from a possible ugly court case with the mining industry, and we decided to opt out of the court processes. We had 7 NGOs that took us to court, and that informed our approach to consultation. And we've engaged all stakeholders. We've been in 11 major mining regions. You can count all of them in all 9 provinces. We're in Witbank in Mpumalanga, we're in Lephalale and Bakersford in Limpopo, we were in Rustenburg and Klerksdorp in Northwest, we were in Welkom, we were in Carltonville, we were in King Williamstown, we were in Saldanha Bay in the Western Cape. We went to all the areas getting the views. Now, anybody who has ever done research will know that research is about representative samples. Because representative samples, particularly if you select them randomly, are likely to reflect the diverse views in community. Now, I think the issue of once empowered, always empowered, has always been an issue. I'm sure it is going to be an issue here today, but we must all appreciate the fact that we are dealing with transformation. And transformation, by its nature, entails change. Change is always painful because it is always associated with loss. You lose what you normally do. You know, when you come to a place, people tell you that this is how we do things here. Now, when there is change, it means we cannot continue doing things as we do things here. And we are busy with transformation. That transformation is dealing with our long, ugly history, where Africans in particular and blacks in general were excluded in everything, including economic activity. They were excluded in professions. They were excluded in doing work. Work was reserved for scheduled persons. What that means, scheduled persons means that a black person could not do that. I normally remind the industry all the time I meet them. Uguti, in 1979, Oak Copper in Namakwaland issued a blasting certificate to a colored man, and the main workers in organized a national strike to protest against that. That is the ugly past that we're dealing with. It took us 21 days of a strike to have a retirement for black mine workers in 1987. Now, you can go through that history. That is the history we're dealing with. I don't know if there are people who are specialists in industrial relations here. They will remember that when black unions were recognized following the Vienna Commission, the mining industry didn't accept it because it has what is called Mines and Works Act, which gave mining a special dispensation. Now, that is what we're dealing with here. And I want us to accept the fact that transformation is not only about numbers here and numbers there and numbers there. It's about changing the outlook of the industry. And it means those who benefited in the privileges must open up. Those who didn't benefit from the privileges must be determined to get in there. And again, I have this word for black business. Black business. I always say this. Black business must be serious. It must be determined. It must build wealth. It must not seek to get free gifts. It must get access. It must be supported. It must build, and we must be behind them. But if you have not worked hard to build wealth, you won't respect that wealth. So I think let's accept that this charter is about opening the opportunities for black South Africans to exploit opportunities that are there. Now, you know, there is a man who is known to be the first person of developing structured economic theory, Adam Smith. See, Adam Smith made one thing that he built and built and built. He has disciplines throughout the generations. His theory was that everything must be left to market forces. We must leave everything to the invisible hand of markets. Let's leave it. It is the most efficient way of correcting problems in society. And Marx developed a counter to that the state must have authority. But what is happening when Keynes came with a hybrid theory of these two? He came up with something that was almost allowing the market to work, but allowed the state to intervene. Now, I think because we're a mixed economy in South Africa, we are more on the Keynesian model of economics. If we want to change it, let's change it. Now, you know, during this period, many people told us to say, leave this charter, it's not necessary. And what they forgot is that anything that is not managed will not progress. Transformation must be managed. And the charter is about managing the transformation process. Why numbers? Anything that is not measured cannot be managed. So we must have numbers to talk to if we want to manage transformation. That's why we'll see that there's a lot of talk about numbers. They're not just numbers. They are numbers that makes our work in the area of transformation measurable. Now, that is where we are. So if we are agreeing that, but there were voices that came to us and said, now, which is vulgarizing Marxist theory about withering away of the state, who are saying to us, no, it should not be the state that gives licenses, it should be the communities. it is covered in a very appealing phrase, right to say no. Now, the state must license mining to manage it. Communities must be consulted thoroughly. If there are objections in a community, we must engage that community. If there's disagreement, we must conduct a survey so that we get the majority views in that community. In that way, we are recognizing both the right to say no and the right to say yes. So, it's an issue that is on the table. We must discuss it so that we engage openly and not cover the intentions in phrases that appear right and correct when they are actually dangerous. You cannot allow, I can tell you, if you can say licenses must be issued by communities and the state must not intervene, there will be chaos, because our experience is that you go to those communities, you get a license, you talk to those communities, people who are leaders of community engaging begin to say, you can go on mining, but give us a tender. That's our experience. Now, we cannot open mining to that behavior. We're dealing with one issue which we have not finalized in one area. I won't mention the area, where a councillor of the ANC mobilized community to disrupt mining because he wants to benefit personally. Cannot happen. It should not happen. It should not happen. It should not happen. Because if we allow that councillor to manipulate processes in a community, abuse, answer community with disinformation, and we allow them to disrupt mining, you are actually destroying capacity of a mining company in that area to benefit the community and benefit the workers. Now, if we agree on the basic principle that transformation is not a compliance issue, it is an issue that should be a business imperative. Transformation, because if we want this mining industry in South Africa to be competitive, to be sustainable, to grow and be all-inclusive in its growth, it must be accepted as not just a compliance issue, as a necessary intervention in South Africa. We have a responsibility to systematically integrate everybody into economic activity. That's why when we come to the question of once empowered, always empowered, our approach to this summit, you will have to discuss it in the Commission, is simple. It's not an issue. First of all, let's get a proper definition of what this empowerment is all about. And we give it in many terms, and we put 3 B's and many E's, and B, 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 E, 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 and want to change it because we are ashamed of saying what it is. BEE is about creating black capitalists. That's what it's all about. If you want a different process, develop a new program. But BEE is Black Economic Empowerment. It's a program to create black business people. That's number one. Number two, we don't have a problem with once empowered, always empowered, but we have principal issues to it. One, if you have created value, and that value voluntarily want to migrate from mining to something else, we can't punish a mining company because as a black person, I've derived value, I want to migrate it. We have no problem with that. But if a company, which happens a great deal, begin to elbow out a black partner, it can't remain empowered. Can't remain empowered. It will only remain empowered if there is a voluntary act of migrating and you take value there, and you can say, you see, that person is a product of the mining empowerment program. He is now doing well in the hotel industry, or is doing well in another industry. My view is that, let's debate it, it's on the table. That person, you can point at the value created. When we discussed this in the department, we made many examples, we looked into many examples. We said many companies started as specialist companies. They diversified and ultimately ended up in a total different sector altogether. For example, you will have a mining company. That mining company will get into retail. It's called Anglo. That's with mines. It goes to retail, it opens sales house, add gas, you can list them. It goes to other sectors. Only when we come back and say there must be the anti-competitive behavior must be clamped down, then it unbundles itself. But it started from one sector and created other sectors. And we say black business should not be imprisoned into mining. They must create value and diversify if they want, but it must be a voluntary act. But in the charter, I want to have a clause that allows at least 40% to remain in mining. That's what we're saying. We'll discuss this issue. We want you to discuss openly and hard and candid about it. But if a big company elbows out a black partner, we're insisting it can't continue being empowered. We have examples of small players who are partners who get squeezed, get indebted, and sunk in debt, and then thrown out of the window. That company cannot remain empowered. That's our argument. So we say, let's develop that concept of once empowered and always empowered, but qualify it properly. Now, you know, when you see the fight on these issues, one of the things that I discovered was that transformation and contestation about transformation become inherently a class contradictory and a class battle, where people in the engagement protect class interests. And if we appreciate that there will be class contradiction and class battles, we should not be ashamed when people take extreme positions. We must persuade them that, listen, in the interest of the industry, you can't go to war to defend class interests. That's where the question of the free carry we're proposing comes in. Free carry, 5% for workers, 5% free carry for communities, is not an attack on investors and shareholders. It is a proposal to say give value to your employees, because your employees convert your investment into value. It is only a worker who converts the investment into value, because that worker goes underground, drills, charge up, blast, hoist, and process that mineral. And in that process, that worker is converting the investment into wealth. And our view is that employers must be prepared to pay 5% for those workers so that they are part of the company, they are loyal, they are protective of the company because it is theirs. We're putting it on the table. Let's debate it, let's discuss it openly. Our view is that it's not too much to ask. Our view is that it's not too much to ask. We don't want huge amount, 5% for workers, free carry, the other 3% you can structure whatever way. 5% free carry for communities, the other 3% you can structure anyway. But the reason we ask for free carry is that there must be value accruing to communities and workers immediately. Now, and we've looked into vendor financing. And we came to our conclusion and said, vendor financing is quite good, it's quite innovative, but it has never have an intention of transferring wealth. If it does, those of you who are lucky to derive wealth from vendor financing, it takes too long, but the majority of cases is that it translates into deep indebtedness. Let's debate it, and we say communities are the same. Now, in communities, our argument is that no mining company of 2018 will appreciate the fact that it has a responsibility to coexist peacefully with those communities. And that coexistence peacefully is called, in modern terminology, social investment. You are investing in the environment you are operating in. It can't be seen as a cost from investors. It's an investment by investors in coexisting where they mine. Because mines, I always describe this industry in bad terms. I say it's a difficult, dirty, dangerous, diseased industry. That's mining. Now, you go to that community, you pollute, you give us something we never know called acid water. You create scars. We're sitting today here with about 6,000 derelict and ownerless mining sites. They were opened, they have not been rehabilitated, they've been left there. That's the legacy of mining industry. And we say the mining industry of today cannot continue as of old. Now somebody referred me to a lesson I must learn. And I went to learn it. He said, Mantashe must learn from General Electric that the world is moving on. General Electric is out of the Dow Jones list. It is small, it has offloaded a number of sectors. And I went to Electric. And what I came out of reading about General Electric was that General Electric all the time has been ahead in terms of ideas. And the fact that it is getting smaller, it is predicting the future and try to adjust today. Mining industry in South Africa must be able to look ahead and appreciate that it can't exist by leaving scars on the ground and those communities see nothing for it. And they go there. Actually, as we went to the 11 areas, a few things that we found out is the question of how graves get exhumed, how houses crack because of blasting. And the mining companies must appreciate that the way of working and interacting with those communities must change. And that 5% free carry is what it's all about. And I also explained that it is not free. It is the owner who pays. Yeah? It's like the concept of free education. There's nothing called free education. It's free to the beneficiary, but the state pays. Lastly, as we engage today, we have options. We have options. One option is to go at war. Go to those commissions, fight it out. Every issue becomes an issue for a shootout. And we leave this summit with no concrete agreements. That's an option. It's the worst option. We may go to those communities prepared to persuade and be persuaded. Then try to reach agreements. You see, if we agree on a principle, we may have a discussion on the modalities. How do we implement what we agree on? That is acceptable. We want to wish you a very successful summit. Please engage. Remember, change is painful. It is always associated with loss. It can only be nice if you are a change driver. If you see yourself as a victim of change, it's more painful. We're inviting all of you to be drivers of change and appreciate that transformation is not a compliance issue. It is important for the mining industry. If we finish this mining charter, we'll get into the business that we know, the business of mining. Let me tell you, let me make one last point. You know, it is up to us to make the mining industry of South Africa what it should be. If we talk it down, it will go down. If we talk it up, it will go up. If we emphasize negativity, it is going to sink. If we actually commit to make it work, it is going to work. You know, the president has committed to raising 1.2 million, 1.2 trillion. No, now those notes are too many. They're just too many. I may as well say 1,000. No. Okay. You say we must work hard to attract 1.2 trillion rand investment to South Africa. I'm convinced, I never ran a mine, but I'm convinced that mining can contribute immensely in that investment. But it depends on what we say publicly, how we deal with things. If we see enemies among ourselves, we must appreciate that we're not going to see investment. If we begin to say we're moving to this direction as a country, in the area of
now, those are some live visuals there where Mineral Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe is officially opening the summit. 2 days have in fact been set aside for the last round of the Mining Charter Review consultation. It was a very rocky start there, but the minister has in fact gone on to address, as he's standing there at the podium, stressing that transformation is not a compliance issue, but a business imperative. It is a necessary intervention in the mining industry.